Hello and welcome back to What If a Billionaire Invested in Brazil. This time we have gone 5 years in the future from last time and we're going to see exactly what has happened across the Brazilian National First Division. You can see an awful lot here already, but it's very, very interesting stuff. Remember, if you're enjoying this kind of content, then make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe for more experiments just like this. And also, why not check out my Lincoln City save as well? I'm really enjoying that. That's a really good series, so go and check that out as well. Right, since you were last here then, we've gone 5 years into the future. And an awful lot has happened. A lot of different teams winning the league as well, which is pretty cool to be fair. The season after we left then, in the 2020 season, Grêmio won the league. Not Grêmio, as I was saying in the last episode. I do apologise for that, but thank you to everyone who corrected me in the comments. I do appreciate it. Grêmio won the league there, which is pretty cool. Santos then won it in 2021, which is quite cool. You know, Santos being back on top of Brazilian football. Season afterwards, Botafogo won it, followed by Fluminense in 2023. And once again, SEC, who we worked out at Cruzeiro, won the league once again in the 2024 season. So if we have a look now properly in depth at these past 5 seasons, going back to 2020, as you can see, Cruzeiro still up there, second place, despite losing the league. But Fluminense, Sao Paulo having a huge recovery. The season before that, they were right down 13th, so they've had a great recovery. And Santos actually having quite a bad season down in 9th, things like that. Season afterwards, though, Santos bounced up, winning the league, which is quite cool for them. Cruzeiro finishing down in 4th, which I'll be disappointed with, to be fair. But actually, if we look at the points, they were only 2 points worse off. So that kind of shows how much better that league was that year, I suppose. Nothing else particularly surprising there as far as I'm aware. Season afterwards, again, Botafogo winning it though, but Santos, the champions last season, finishing down in 6th, which is really, really poor for them. Sao Paulo dropping back down to 10th again. So they're really up and down a lot, aren't they? If we look at this, always up and down, up and down, up and down. So clearly some things going wrong there. 23 season then, Fluminense win it this time round ahead of Cruzeiro, which we can sort of assume probably the best team in Brazil at the moment. The amount of times they've come first or they finished in the top 5, for example, they're consistently up there. So I reckon at the moment, Cruzeiro have made the most use of their money and things like that. So they're doing pretty well for themselves. Santos finishing down in 11th this time. Grêmio finishing 9th. It's really, really surprising. Corinthians down in 14th as well. That's really poor from them. It's really surprising, I think, how all these teams are fluctuating so much. It kind of shows how close all these teams really are and how much the money they're pumping in, things like that. And of course, the season we just had, Cruzeiro winning it once again, beating ATP to the final, who are Club Atlético Paranaense. I'm trying to tilt my head to look at this. I'm sure I've butchered that. I know a few of you commented down below saying you're supporting them as well, so I do apologise for that. But they finished second, which is very good for them. Their highest finish in a long time, actually. It's 2004 they finished second. That's the last time they finished second. So interesting stuff there. So that's what's happened in the league. As you can see, lots of different teams winning it. The same sort of teams around the top, but a lot of teams like Santos and Corinthians, Sao Paulo jumping up and down the table an awful lot, so it's really interesting to see. Let's look at the transfers then over the past few years. We want to see if players are coming in from Europe. Now, I do know that there's a limit on the amount of foreign players you can have in a squad. Only 5 foreign players are allowed in Brazilian teams, which is interesting. It's something that we need to factor into this, of course. I forgot to mention it last time out. It's something I purposely didn't change because I wanted to see if they really do get selective on their players and the quotas that they have to have, so they have to get the best players in possible. So I thought that might help them, for example, but perhaps it's not quite worked out for them. As you can see, more players coming in from Europe, not many. Wallace from Lazio actually is about the only one on this top list for 28 million, but Wallace is a Brazilian himself, so that's not really helping us too much. But last time we did identify that a lot of youngsters are coming back. A lot of youngsters that have moved to Europe are moving back now because the facilities here are so good. Last time we changed the facilities, so in between everyone's got 2020 facilities now, so they're really top facilities. So I thought that might help as well. But it looks like things haven't changed too much. Dalbert this time coming from PSG to Corinthians for 17.25 million. But again, Dalbert, Brazilian player. So nothing too extraordinary right now. We do need to be looking out for other players though from Europe. Gabriel Paulista from Valencia, but again, a Brazilian player. Not quite what we wanted to see from this. So perhaps going forward, if we did this again, perhaps we would want to have to change the quota for European players or players outside of Brazil, for example. David Neres, though, moving from Cruzeiro to Man United. How old is he now? He's 27, and that was a few years ago. So sort of moved in his prime, actually, rather than, it sort of goes against the assumption that we had that young players were moving to Brazil once again, but that guy's leaving there, so that's not too good. This season, though, a lot of players coming actually in. A few from China. Marco Grujic coming from Beijing to ATP for 24 million, and he is a Serbian guy. So that's interesting, a top European player. I mean, he's not perhaps one of the top level European players like you would call like a Messi or Ronaldo, But he is up there. He's very good. He's got some really, really good stats. So that's interesting that he's coming over now to Brazil. Perhaps that will start the floodgates coming. I don't know. But if we look down, again, most of it is just into Brazilian transfers. There's not a whole lot. Lucas Boyer from Torino is an Argentinian. So that's kind of showing that some young Argentinians and South Americans want to come back to South America to play their trade. Eder from Las Palmas, another Brazilian, but again, a youngster at the time when he moved. So the theory that the youngsters want to come back is still there. The 23 season then, if we look down again, in fact, I think most of these are just either Chinese teams or inter-Brazilian teams. So that's a little bit annoying. Vincent Abubakar from Guangzhou coming in from Cameroon. So that's, again, it's starting to show that perhaps these Brazilian sides are turning into more of the Chinese sides. The Chinese side signed some marquee players that are getting on a little bit. Perhaps this is what the Brazilian side are starting to do a little bit, but sign them from China, if you get what I'm saying there. And then the season we just have, a 24 season, if we look down, not an awful lot going on in terms of big European names coming, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame, actually. I did expect to see a bit more of this, but it's not quite happened yet. And that could be to do with the reputation of a league. So we'll have a look now, see what it's done. And it has gone up this time. It was on 158 last time. It's now 162. So that showed a bit of improvement. The money has helped a little bit, but clearly not helped enough to get these teams back where they need to be. As I'm recording this, I'm literally reading a comment saying, can you check the prize money? Has that changed at all? So let's look at the prize money very quickly before we move on. And by looks of things, it may have changed slightly. He says the prize money for first in the first season that we did was 4.2 million. It's now 4.3. So it's increased ever so slightly, but not quite as dramatically as you would have thought it would. We're now going to move on, though, to the Copa Libertadores, which is a name that I keep saying differently every single time. But this is also what we want to see. We want to see if Brazilian teams were constantly winning this. And as you can see, they have done. They've absolutely dominated this. Since Grêmio won it in 2018, Corinthians year after, Fluminense, then Flamengo, then Cruzeiro, then ATP, then Botafogo. All Brazilian teams winning it in the last couple of seasons. We'll go to the quarterfinals again, though, and we want to see how many Brazilian teams are making it there. So we'll go back to 2020 quarterfinals. That's where I want to be. All but one team, Brazilian, which is fantastic. This next season, only 5 teams from Brazil there, 3 from Argentina. 2022, domination again, 6 Brazilian teams. 23, 7 Brazilian teams again. And the year afterwards, 6 Brazilian teams. I'm waiting for the day when we have all 8 Brazilian teams in the quarterfinals. But it does show how much dominance these Brazilian sides are now having. We'll also go down to the Copa Sud-America as well, because we haven't looked at that yet, actually. We should have done that before. Are Brazilian teams winning this? It's a bit different, actually. Not quite as many Brazilian teams winning it. Racing Club, they're from Argentina, I believe. Yeah, Argentina. And then this other guy, Rosario Central. Where are they from? Argentina as well. So not quite as dominant in this competition, but again, a lot of them are winning it. So SPT, Santos, ATP, and Sao Paulo winning it there since that's happened. So that's pretty cool as well. Moving over then to the Club World Championship. This is a big one. We want to see if South American teams, Brazilian teams specifically, can compete with the European sides in the Club World Championships. And as you can see, one team has won it. Cruzeiro have won it in 2022, but that's not the dominance we've seen. I'm surprised that Chivas won it actually in 2021. That's a pretty interesting one to see there. If we look at the history then and look at past winners, we can see if they're constantly getting to the finals or not. And actually, as it looks right there, they're not doing particularly well, really. One of the main points of this experiment was to see if they could compete with European sides and North American sides. But it's not looking like it, really, which is kind of where we're thinking this experiment could be failing. Obviously, we saw last time, the last 3, with Corinthians finishing second to Juventus. The year afterwards, Bayern Munich took on Pumas in the final. So Pumas obviously must have got past Fluminense, which is disappointing for them. Season afterwards, Chivas beat Real Madrid and Flamengo finishing in 3rd. Not very good at all. 2022 was a good one. Cruzeiro beat America to it and Chelsea finishing 3rd. So it was a North America, South America final, actually. That's really interesting. Chelsea not doing very well at all there. But AS Monaco restore European dominance in 2023, beating ATP with Chivas finishing 3rd. So I'm not entirely sure what to make of that yet. It's not all that conclusive, really, considering that teams like Chelsea finishing 3rd as well. So perhaps it's a case that year Chelsea weren't taking it very seriously, whereas Cruzeiro were, for example. It's just an interesting one there. It's something we'll look out for in the future as well. There have been 2 World Cups as well since then, France and Italy winning it. France runners-up actually in 2022, and Croatia runners-up in 2018. All European sides though, top 3, so Brazil clearly not doing very well. All the money we've pumped in there and all the facilities that we've improved clearly haven't actually done that well to get them back to World Cup winning ways, because they've not won it since 2002 now. If we look down as well on some of these statistics as well, if we look for European players, there just aren't any. It's all Brazilian and South American players essentially. That's what it is. Lanzini is obviously Argentinian, so they're just not that interested. Now, Dennis Mann, Romanian, he's come in there. That's an interesting signing. We've got a European finally there. Where's he come? He came from Steaua Bucharest and actually came on a free after he was released there. So there's signs of European players coming, just not quite the calibre that we would have wanted. We've seen some other international players, but not European specifically. Starting to see a few Portuguese players there as well, which is interesting. Of course, Portuguese is the language of Brazil, so it does kind of make sense that Portuguese players are coming here because they speak the language, so the adaptability doesn't need to be that high because they can just speak the language already. So Luis comes in as central midfielder, a very young Portuguese player actually. He came in, was actually a regen of a Brazilian side, so it doesn't actually make it that much of an interest actually now that I've said that. I thought that was going to be like a Porto regen, for example. Is Nuno Santos the same thing? He's 29 years old actually, however, actually moved to Mexico before moving to Brazil during this experiment, which is quite interesting to see. But at least we are starting to see some European players come here, even though it's not actually that great so far. Leo Baptisto, actually also a Spanish player this time. That's quite interesting to see. 30 years old. Where did he come from? He came from China, but has played in Brazil before. In fact, he moved to Brazil like one of the first seasons. We did this actually for 26 million. I feel like we spoke about him last episode, but I thought he was Brazilian, so maybe I didn't check on him too much. But played a lot of his football in Spain for Vallecano, for a lot of time Espanyol, before moving to China actually, but then came back to Brazil, which is very interesting. So he must have liked it so much, and they must be doing something right in Brazil to attract players of his quality. So I think we're going to leave it there for this episode. Next time we're going to go another 5 years into the future. I may make a few tweaks as well in the in-game editor, perhaps give them a bit more money, perhaps boost reputation of individual sides as well. That's kind of what I want to think about doing now. If we boost the reputation of some of these teams, perhaps they will be able to start competing with transfer-wise. So that's something I'll think about doing in time for next episode. But thank you very much for watching today's episode. Make sure you leave lots of comments telling me what you've seen in this episode, because I miss a lot of things. So let me know what you've seen. Keep up with suggestions as well for what you want to see next time round. I'm going to put a poll on Twitter soon with my favourites, so be prepared for that. I'll make sure to alert you to that though next time. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure you do drop a like, subscribe if you're new around here for more of this Brazilian and experiment action, and of course the Link and Loco stuff as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a nice one.